I had just finished tightening the last screw on the new deadbolt when I heard it flip-flops, fast and angry, smacking the pavement like judgment was coming in cheap rubber soles. And of course it was her, Linda Beckley, the self-declared monarch of the Crestfield HOA, storming down the sidewalk with a rolled-up bylaw pamphlet in her fist like she was marching into the Supreme Court and I was the case of the century. "You can't just change a lock," she barked, voice shrill enough to rattle porch lights. That's a direct violation of Community Code 42B, but halfway through her rant she stopped cold. Her jaw literally froze mid-sentence like someone had hit pause on her internal rage channel. "Why?" Because about 10 feet behind me, stretched out in an old Adirondack chair on my deck, was none other than Sheriff Clay Winslow, aviators on steam rising from his coffee mug, the morning paper folded neatly in his lap, and a grin on his face that said, "Oh, this is going to be fun." Linda blinked like she wasn't sure if she was still angry or if she should switch tactics and flirt. But she'd already lost the moment. Clay gave me a little nod and said, "Nice lock, Ben. Looks solid." Truth is that morning hadn't started with any plan for drama. I was just replacing the old lock it jammed during a cold snap last week, and I figured it was time. But Linda, ever since she got re-elected HOA president by one shady vote, probably her own cast twice, she'd been on a power bender, walking around like she owned everyone's front yard. She started calling people's homes assets under community stewardship, which in Linda speak meant mine to control when I feel like playing dictator. That woman had let herself into my backyard twice already this year, said she was doing surprise inspections. One time I found a friendly reminder flyer shoved into my kitchen window screen. Only way she could have gotten in was with a key. A key I never gave her. That's when I realized she still had one of the old HOA duplicates. Probably told herself it was for emergency access. I called it what it was, trespassing. So I grabbed a high-security deadbolt and got to work. Turns out those 20 minutes I spent swapping the lock were the exact 20 minutes Linda chose for her weekly community patrol, which usually just meant judging flower beds and snapping pics of trash bins left out for too long. She came in hot, said I needed to fill out some ridiculous lock change modification form. I asked her if she wanted it notarized or etched into granite. That didn't go over too well. Just as she was gearing up to escalate, Clay leaned forward and said, calm as anything, "Linda, are you seriously saying a man needs HOA permission to change the lock on his own home? The one he pays for that. You don't even own." Linda tried to recover, smoothed her blouse like she was about to address the nation. Well, technically, exterior access modifications do require board approval under section... I cut her off, pulled out a copy of the most current bylaws. Section 42B was repealed, August 2021. Here's the transcript. You nodded when it passed. Her face tightened like she just bit into a raw lemon. She looked at Clay like she was hoping for backup, but he just sipped his coffee. That's when I dropped the real reason I'd changed the lock. Someone entered my home last week, I said. Didn't steal anything but moved things. Pantry door left open, faucet dripping, thermostat turned way down. Neighbor's camera caught someone entering with a key I never gave out. Linda paled. I don't know anything about that. You're the one who maintained the emergency access key list, right? I asked. This isn't looking good. That's not what happened, she stammered. Footage says otherwise. Want to see it? Clay stood up real slow. If someone used an HOA key to enter without permission, we're looking at potential criminal charges. Linda, you sure you don't want to rethink your story? She didn't say a word, just spun around and stomped off heels, clicking like cartoon sound effects. I figured that might be the end of it. Nope. 4 hours later, I got an official email from the HOA, the subject line, "Immediate violation, unauthorized lock change." It was Linda, still trying to play queen. But I wasn't just some random homeowner. I'd spent 2 weeks digging through records and even tracked down Marvin Peters, the old HOA secretary who resigned halfway through his term after accusing Linda of altering board minutes. Marvin sent me a flash drive with meeting clips, email threads, and a golden nugget from 2021, Linda herself on video, saying I suppose people should have the right to change their locks. I held on to it, just to see how far she'd push. The next day she taped a paper notice to my window, illegally I might add, announcing an emergency board session to discuss acts of non-compliance. It was a closed session, no residents allowed. So I showed up anyway. Didn't go in, just leaned on the bike rack out front. Through the glass I saw her pacing like a general with no army. I gave her a friendly wave. She sent out poor old Alton, the folding chair guy. Ben, this meeting's closed. I'm not interrupting, I said. Just making sure transparency doesn't go out the window along with the truth. Also, tell Linda I've got that repeal video. Don't let her walk into this blind. That night, Clay texted me, said she left a window open. He heard everything. Hope you don't mind I recorded it, he wrote. From there, it snowballed. Neighbors came forward, story after story. Linda digging up flower beds, yelling at kids for sidewalk chalk, finding a guy for putting up a red umbrella. So we held our own meeting, just some chairs in my garage and a laptop. I played the lock footage, then showed them Linda's nephew Todd trying my shed door at 2 a.m. By the end of the night, 35% of the neighborhood had signed a recall petition. That Friday, the community center was packed, standing room only. Linda stood at the podium like nothing was happening. I raised my hand. This isn't a comment, it's a motion. 1/3 of homeowners have signed for an emergency recall vote. She tried to shut it down. Said it was mob rule, witch hunt. But when Clay stood up at the back of the room with a folder in hand and said, I've submitted this to the county, unauthorized entry, falsified minutes. You want to dispute it? I've got time. Her face just fell. The vote passed. 67% voted her out right there. She walked out in silence, Todd trailing behind like a dog who knocked over a vase, just the sound of heels on tile, like a countdown to karma. But she wasn't done. 3 days later, I got served. She was suing me for harassment and emotional distress. Claimed I'd caused her psychological trauma. I laughed, then got curious. What was she really hiding? That's when we found the HOA hard drive. Budget files, payments, over $30,000 to a landscaping company owned by her sister. Another chunk to Todd's bogus audit firm. Clay handed everything to financial crimes, her lawsuit dismissed without a hearing. Her lawyer withdrew 2 days later. The neighborhood, it bloomed. HOA dues dropped. The clubhouse turned into a free lending library. We even renamed the HOA newsletter the Crestfield Ledger. Way better than the Compliance Chronicle, right? One morning I saw her by her car, staring at the for sale sign in front of her house. She looked at my porch, didn't say a word, then drove off. That was the last time I saw Linda Beckley. But the next morning, there was an envelope in my mailbox. No name, just a photo from last summer's BBQ, Linda laughing, standing next to the neighbors she'd end up betraying. On the back in soft pen, it read, "Don't let it happen again." I pinned it to my fridge right next to the first violation she ever gave me. Because sometimes all it takes is one lock to change everything. Now let me ask you, do you think HOAs are about community or control? And if someone used a key to walk into your house without asking, what would you have done? Let me know. I'm genuinely curious how far you'd go to take your neighborhood back.